Hello everyone, it's Kim with the Vintage Vikings. Welcome back to my channel. And for those of you that this is your first visit, thanks for stopping by. Today I thought that we could do a little tutorial about coffee dyeing on different sizes of paper. So I'm getting ready to do a bigger, chunkier journal coming up here in the next week or so. And I noticed I didn't have a lot of large papers. And I think if this journal is going to be a little bit bigger than your typical A4 or 8.5 by 11 copy paper. So I thought I would just put some bigger pieces in and bring you guys with while I'm doing it. Also at the end of the video, what we're going to do is I found some other things that are a little more textury, and I want to try out some quick coffee dye on those just to get rid of some of the white. And so we'll do that at the very end. And then I will show you what it's going to look like when I pulled it all out and dried it and got it all ready to go. So let's get started. First of all, what you need is a container to dye in. I usually use glass, if at all possible, if it's big enough. If I'm going to be doing a lot of dyeing, I will sometimes use a big plastic tote. Anything that you have that you can see the side so you can see the ratio of liquid to paper is always good. It's really dreary out today, so I'm getting a ton of shadows, so I apologize about the lighting. Second thing you need is water, and right now this is empty because the water is on the electric kettle. So it should be warmer than hot tub water, so anything over 105 is what I usually use. If it gets too much hotter, I feel that it just makes the paper disintegrate while you're using that hot of water, and then you're going to get a lot of rips and tears and stuff in the corners, and I feel it breaks the paper down a lot quicker, but I could be wrong, but that's just my experience that I've had. So as soon as I see the bubbles starting on that, I'll go ahead and pour it in the pitcher. The other thing we're going to need is some sort of a smooshy device. I use a wooden spoon, and I usually keep my wooden spoon with my grungy baking dish, which is I think a 9 by 11 or a 9 by 13 inch pan. And I usually just try to keep all this together. If you notice it's grungy, it's because I don't really clean it very much. I rinse the inside out so I don't get cross-contamination, but if it's just going to be used for dyeing, there's no sense in spending time with all of the extras. And if you notice, I'm going to be doing something that's bigger than 8.5 by 11, and you wonder how it's going to fit in here. I'm going to do some different kinds of folds this time so I can get a little bit of texture going on the paper and not just a solid one color typical coffee dye. And then we need our coffee. So I'm going to use instant coffee, and if you can see how chunky it is, I try to break it up. It gives a better, a little bit better of a dissolve. But once you're using super hot water, it dissolves pretty quickly. Alrighty, and I just use whatever inexpensive generic coffee that the local grocery store has whenever I'm getting ready to do a project, because I've noticed that the extra coffee in the morning doesn't tend to be strong enough to dye when I want some darker colors, and then I end up leaving the paper in too long, and then of course it damages the paper. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by just dumping, this is probably about 3/4 of a cup of just instant coffee. So let me just quickly grab the water so I just didn't want to try to put the hot water on while I'm pouring it, so in case we have a little bit of a problem. Here we go. Oh, and now we've got some foaminess going on, which is just fine. Okay, so it looks like it's already starting to dissolve. We'll give it a quick couple of stirs. I don't think that the bubbles really do anything, but it's all experimenting. If you you know, with junk journaling, it can be whatever you want to do. It's however you want it to work. So if the bubbles cause you problems, then pour slow and don't have bubbles. If they don't bother you, then make it with bubbles. Okay, I like to use a pitcher and pour instead of trying to scoop in with a cup and try to re-ladle over itself. I tend to find it makes less of a mess. Okay, so when I start, I always like to put about maybe a 1/2 inch in the bottom of the dish, just so that the first sheet that goes in has a little bit of coffee to soak it up. And again, if you notice, this paper is much bigger than your typical 8.5 by 11. I want to say this paper is 20 by 11 maybe. I could be wrong. I'll put it down in the description as to what size it really is. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by just dunking the bottom part in until it's, if you can see, it just barely is covering it. Okay, so now the back is covered, and then I will use my spoon just to get it wet, and then I'm going to almost accordion it into the baking dish. If I know exactly how big my journal is going to be, then I might go ahead and pre-fold everything. But this way, I don't know exactly how big it's going to be, so I'm going to just kind of accordion them back and forth. Again, getting the back one nice and wet, and then just letting the coffee pool up a little bit here and there. Let's give it a little bit more. Will give us nicer variations in the color. And then I'm just going to kind of go back and forth with it and not put an actual fold, which is going to crease it a little bit because once it gets wet, but it's not going to be an actual fold in the paper. So let's just quickly layer some of these in here. I'm sure you guys are getting the gist of this. And so what we'll do is we'll get a couple of these in here, get them soaking, and then we'll move on to the other bits that might be a little bit different. And then at the end of the video, I will show you a little sample of what these are going to look like after you take them out and get them all nice and dry, which is a little bit harder to do now that it's winter here. I can't just lay them out on the patio with a bunch of rocks on them, so I have to get a little bit more creative. And they do take a little bit longer, so I'm going to leave a little bit of that white showing there. Let me just try to do a few little techniques, and I can probably do about 20 pieces of the folded in this. I won't bore you all and do all of those in here, but just to give you a little sample of how I'm doing it. And if you notice, I've left a little bit of the white right here, and then there's pools of the darker coffee there, and then this part you can see is just saturated. That should give us some nice markings. And then sometimes I just stick it right in like this and don't even smoosh it in the middle and see what you're going to get. Because again, with junk journaling, it's really just all about experimenting and not having any rules. And sometimes not having any rules when you're crafting is the best. All right, let's just do one more. And then we're going to let these just sit in here while we move on to some of our other little bits that I'd like to try out and show you what you can do once you've got this soaking. Alrighty, I think that looks pretty good. So what we're going to do is we're going to just set the coffee aside. Sorry about the shadows, this dreary weather. Okay, then, not necessary, but I like to wipe up my workspace so I know exactly what I'm getting with my dyeing. Or not exactly, but a little bit better. So what I want to do is, so it'll show up maybe a little better, I'm just going to put this down, and I'd like to try a little bit of this. I don't even really know what it is. It's like, it's textured, it's super thick, it's super fibrous. It's got really a great texture. I don't know what it is. It's just a board of some sort, and it's got 2 holes in it, but I have no idea. I found it at a thrift store for pretty much next to nothing, and there were like 10 of them all bundled together, and I thought this would make a great cover that you can layer on it, you know, type of thing. So I'm just going to try and see what we get here. So it looks like now we're a little far away, so let's see if we can zoom in just a tiny bit. There we go. Alrighty. Show better there. Oh, maybe that looks better. There we go. Alrighty. And since again I'm on a plastic, it doesn't matter. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take all those little extra bits that are in here, and I want to just paint this with the coffee because I don't think that this fibrous board is going to maintain its density and its structure if I were to dunk it all the way in there. I could be wrong, but like I said, there was only a small amount of them in the package, and I would hate to have one disintegrate. So all I'm doing is I'm just very sloppily, if that's a word, painting the coffee that's in my, don't even need an extra container of it, that's in my dish already that's got my paper soaking, and I'm just going to give it a nice little wash, almost like when you're egg washing or milk washing the top of a pie. Nothing fancy, nothing crazy. And then I'm going to, because it's already starting to feel like the integrity of it is not as great, but we'll see. It's all an experiment. And then I'm just going to quickly do the edges. Once I decide what I'm going to do with it, then if I have to cut it down, then I will go ahead and redo the edges at that point. But right now I'm just going to do them. And again, this is an experiment. I want to see how it's going to work. And I'm not going to do the back because, like I said, it's already starting to get a little mushy, which is fine with paper, but I don't know about this. I wonder if it has some sort of naturally cotton or something, fabric fiber in it. Who knows? Okay, so we're going to set this aside and let it dry, and then we'll get back to that one. And again, I'm going to wipe up my mess. And we're just going to do one more. Thanks for sticking around. Don't want to make these too long, but just some ideas of things that you can coffee dye that you don't have to necessarily dunk all the way in your dye bath. I found these little lacy, they're like a cutout, so but they're paper, and so I think they're for invitations, maybe. It didn't say. And then these were from one of the, I think they're from the same like the same wedding pack, but these were seat numbers, and I thought let's try to dye those, and then maybe I can cover this 23 up or add it to an advent calendar or something. But with these being so thin, I think if we were to dunk this, I think we're going to get a little bit of a mess, and we're going to lose the definition. So I'm going to very, very quickly do the same with these. I tried using one of these to try to get the pattern on the paper underneath, and it was just a big blob. So that's not what I'm trying to accomplish here. I'm just trying to get a little bit of color so that this isn't a stark white, but without having the paper disintegrate enough to where I lose the definition of all of the cutouts. So, and if you can see, I just left it so it's a little, you know, little wet, little bumpy there. So we're going to set that aside to dry. And then since it's the same one, I'm not going to go ahead and wipe this because it's just going to get wet anyway. So let's put that one down. And again, I don't know what I'm going to use in this journal. I just thought since I was bringing you guys along to do a little bit of dyeing that isn't your typical 8.5 by 11 paper in a plastic tote, I thought let's try some other things and see what we get here. That looks pretty saturated. This one feels like it's a little bit more structurally sound than the other one. but I can see that it's getting a little transparent on the edges, which means that the liquid is starting to really penetrate the fibers. Then is when you're going to start breaking your paper down, and you're going to lose its integrity. So, and then be very careful when you're picking them up, because if it starts to get really soft on the corners, then that's when you start ripping and tearing and they start coming apart. So I'm going to see if this actually dies or if it's just literally sitting on the top of it and it's not actually going to go in and absorb into it. Alrighty, and then I want to try one other thing. I thought when I bought this is that it was regular handmade paper, but then I got it and it doesn't, it just kind of looks like more like a cottony paper. Boy, the lighting is terrible in here. Maybe if the sun would come out here, it would be easier to film, but I guess we got what we've got. All right, and so I'm just going to give this a little paint as well, because I don't think that this paper is going to tolerate being submerged for any period of time without it just falling apart. But again, I didn't like that just beige color. And again, a little tip, if you're needing to pick up the corner and you don't want to rip it, if you can see I don't know if you can see that, where the edges are starting to get really thin. I don't want those to rip because I think those will be pretty, but you just take your paintbrush that you're working with and very easily just, and of course, just kind of tuck it up underneath, and then you'll be able to pick it up and then flatten it out. So let's see what these are going to do. I'm going to set these to dry, but like I said, I did do a set that sat for about 4 hours, and I let them, they sat in the coffee mixture, same ratio of about 2 quarts of water to 3/4 of a cup of the coffee. Just want to dry that off. And we're going to set these over here so we don't get our papers that are already done into the mess. Alrighty, you can roll our sleeves back down now that we're not in the mess. So let's pull out some of the papers that I did the exact same thing with. We'll see kind of what we get. All right, same exact paper, same size. As you can see, it's the same paper, but wow, the color is starkly different, which of course it should be. Let's see. And so, as you can tell, let me get out a little bit again. That's better, so you're not right on top of it. So this looks like your traditional coffee dyed paper. Some lines because I had it drying on a cookie wire. But then when you flip it over, look at how nice this looks. I mean, so if I were to fold this in half, I'm not going to completely fold it, but look at how fabulous that is. You're going to get a page that is going to look different all the way around. So I really like how that turned out. And what I did is I put them under a warm iron, gave them a little, just a tiny little bit of steam to break down the coffee a little bit, and then just pressed them, and then I just store them under a big, one of those big thick, I use a nice big World War II almanac that's probably 3 inches thick and is bigger than this paper. So, but if you look how fantastic, you get a little bit of the dyed part there. You can see a little bit of the darkening where you're going to fold it, and then again you've got some lines. I really like how this turned out, and again it was all because I just accordioned them into, so that's folded in half, so you're going to get a little bit on there. When you flip it over, then this whole page is going to have it. So we'll just go through some of these quickly. So this one's just a simple, plain one. And again, we talked about the disintegration of the paper. Let's see if you can see it. Yeah, there you go. It got a little soft there when I was trying to get it out of the pan. But again, I'm just going to flip through these very quickly so you can just see a little bit of how different they look. This one I like because it looks like an old-fashioned book, already done with the middle part being really dark. And not the same on that side. And then this one, as I folded it up, it just, and again, it broke down, so I got a little hole in that one. So we'll figure out what we're going to do with that. Here is one that I remember when I did the one where I just kind of stuck it in, folded it over, poured a little bit, and let it go. Then I only got a little bit in the middle, but it looks like a lot of white space. But once you fold it and cut it, I think it's going to look pretty fantastic. And we don't need to go through all of these. I just thought, you know, showing you just some of the different variations you'll get by not using enough to where it gives you a nice even dye. All right. Oh, here's a little treat. So I had a couple extra stickers, sticker sheets from when you're mailing, you know, your shipping labels. And I accidentally had them sitting next to where I was dyeing and splattered a little bit. So I thought, well, why not just splatter the rest of it? And then I might print something, maybe some phrases or something that I can use. And it's already a pre-sticky. And then I thought, well, what if I do the same thing and I just paint it? So I just painted a little bit on there and then let it dry. I did not iron these. I just put these under the book after they were dry. And then here again, I just painted. And they didn't really curl up a lot. They didn't, you know, I didn't get a lot of wrinkling or anything. So these will be fun. And I'll show you, maybe I'll do a tutorial about making sticker pages. Here was just some other pages that I had. This is just some cardstock that I did the same technique with, of just kind of putting it in there, and then I did some splattering on these just because I had some extra coffee left. So I thought, well, let's not waste it. So that's just a few that I got out of that. And I'm trying to get all the way down to the bottom. Oh, look at this one. This one is fantastic. When you fold that in half. I mean, heck, you could even, if I'm going to use it for a smaller journal, if you fold it this way, and you only get, so if you use this, and here's your folds, and then you open it, and then there's the back. That's kind of a fun thing instead of always folding it. I don't know. I think this technique was pretty fun. I love trying new things on this larger paper. And if while I'm getting the signatures together and I don't like how it really worked out, then I will scrap it and I will make some new ones. That one just got a little bit, look how dark and crunchy that got. I like that. And then this one you can tell was on the very bottom with the baking stripes, or the baking racks, cooling racks, I'm sorry. I mean, look at how fantastic. I don't know, that just looks like it's going to be fun to use. So, okay. Thank you guys for sticking around for so long. Let's look at the last two pieces that we have. Where is my... looks like we're missing one. So here is that textured one. And I did it exactly the same as how I did the one earlier. And it's all nice and dry. It did warp a little, not much. It didn't seem to take as well on the edges as I had hoped. But all in all, I think it was a success, and I'll see what we use it on. And here is the lacy, the heavier one without the number. It didn't take too much of it. I might see if I do it again, but they are a little bit on the fragile side, and it looks, by looking right here, that it looks like it's not really absorbing when you just paint it on. I think it's just sitting on the top, so I think that's why I didn't get such a great caramely color on that. And I seem to have misplaced my one with the number on it. I had them all sitting right here, and I must have dropped it or something. They just disappeared. So anyway, I will have to we'll have to show that off in another one of our videos. So anyway, and then the last one is that weird not homemade paper. It might have some cotton in it, but I think these turned out okay, but more just your traditional paper. So, all right, everyone. Well, thanks for stopping by. I hope you enjoyed this coffee dyeing tutorial, and we'll see you soon on the next one. Make sure you give us a like, and if you don't mind, give us a little subscribe. Bye now.